Hi, we're going to teach you today about um, how glacier melting affects the sea level rise in the world. Here we have a map of Greenland, and over the map you see these areas that are in different colors, and this represents a big glacier that's over all of Greenland. And the different colors represent different levels of elevation for the glacier. Here we see a specific part of the glacier. It's called the Jakobshavn Glacier. Let's zoom in on this part. And it looks something like this, zoomed in. We're going to use a simulation. You're going to use a simulation to better understand how, when this glacier melts, it affects sea level rise. So you can use that to better understand what happens when the whole glacier melts and how that affects sea level rise. Okay, great. Let's go to the simulation now. In this simulation, you see this map of the Jakobshavn Glacier I just showed you that we zoomed in on. And each one of these contours represents a different date. Right now, the starting date is 1851. When you get to this contour line, it's 1876. So, in each part of this glacier is visually represented here by this glacier here. And this entire glacier is in the water, so you can see the sea level. After this glacier, there's a big glacier that goes above the land of Greenland, and you see part of that glacier here. But it goes and extends very far, very high. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to see what happens when you play with simulation. So, if you run your mouse to the right over the map, it will disappear and you'll see a chunk of this glacier break off. Because this glacier is going to start the melting process, so it's going to disappear too. And next what you see is, you see this arrow over the land glacier. And for right now there's this little depiction. What happens is when this part of the glacier breaks off, it's like when a dam breaks and water comes rushing through. But here, when the glacier breaks off, there's not as much pressure that's keeping this land glacier on the land. Because there's not as much pressure on it, it's going to move to the left. When it moves to the left, what happens is that it enters the water because it comes off the land a little bit. And when that happens, the sea level rises. That's why you have this arrow here. So if you move your mouse to the right over this section of the map, you see that it disappears, and you see that another part of the glacier breaks off, and you see that this land glacier is going to move to the left, because there isn't as much pressure from the part of the glacier in the sea to keep it on the land. So it's going to move to the left into the water, and the sea level is going to rise again. So you can play with this simulation, and you'll see how this map of the glacier corresponds to this animation. And you can see how it affects sea level rise and how it affects the land glacier moving, how they're related. You can also click on the glaciers. For example, you can drag this to the left, and you'll see what happens when the glacier broke off. And you can drag it to the right, and you'll see, sorry, Margie, I need to fix this. This is just a rough video anyway. Actually, it's hard to do without the simulation. Let me try this again. So you can play with the land glacier, and when you drag this to the right, you'll see what happens to the map when it goes back into the glacier. So you can drag these parts left and right, and as you do that, the animation will keep going. You can see how breaking off the glacier affects the landmass moving, and how moving the landmass back affects it, how that relates to the glacier breaking off, how that relates to the map, and sea level rise, and you can play with both parts of the simulation and move back and forth and see how they're all related. So there's a second simulation you should play with. And here we have that map of the glacier over Greenland, and we have a map of the sea. We have a picture of the sea level rise over South Seaport in New York City, Manhattan. I know many of you have probably been there. It's a really fun place. You can click on each section of the glacier to make it disappear, and as it disappears, it melts, and as it melts, you'll see the sea level rise, because when it melts, it's adding water into the ocean. So if you click on this one, you see the sea level rise more. So you can use this simulation, and you can see how sea level rises, and according to having this entire glacier over Greenland melting. You can also drag down the sea level, and you can see how that relates to the glacier. So like before, you can play with either one, and you can see how they're all related. Okay, great. Have some fun for about, 7 or so minutes playing around, and then you'll answer some quick test questions, and have a lot of fun at the open house today. All right, thank you.